The January sun hadn't yet broken over the horizon when Randall Duke Blackwood started his day, just as he had for the past 30 years. At 55, he cut an imposing figure against the Texas dawn, 6'2", weathered face, and hands calloused from decades of hard work. The oil industry had made him wealthy, but out here on his sprawling ranch outside Austin, none of that seemed to matter. You build everything you think you want: the ranch, the business, the reputation, Duke would later say, his voice heavy with regret. But then one day you wake up and realize success doesn't keep you warm at night. 2016 had barely begun, and Duke's 4,000-acre ranch was already showing signs of a prosperous year. His investment in oil technology had paid off handsomely, and his cattle operation was thriving. But behind the walls of his luxurious ranch house, Duke's world had grown increasingly empty since his wife's passing 3 years earlier. Mr. Blackwood, he was always first one up, last one to leave, recalled James, his longtime ranch hand. Worked harder than any of us. But there was this loneliness in his eyes, especially in the evenings when everyone else headed home to their families. Every night, after the workers left and the ranch grew quiet, Duke would settle into his study. The room was a testament to his success: oil field photographs, industry awards, and family photos that seemed to belong to another lifetime. His daughter Madison kept telling him to get out more, meet someone new. But at his age, in a small town where everyone knew your business, it just seemed impossible. Then came that fateful night in January. As Duke scrolled through his social media feed, an advertisement caught his eye: Latin American dating. Find your perfect match. Perhaps it was the bourbon, or maybe the weight of another lonely evening, but something made him click. The profile that would change everything appeared almost immediately. Isabella Torres, 24, from Monterrey, Mexico. Her photos showed a stunning young woman with olive skin and dark eyes that seemed to pierce through the screen. She posed in front of a trendy boutique, her profile describing her as a successful business owner seeking mature companionship. Your ranch looks amazing, her first message read. I've always dreamed of visiting Texas. Duke paused, his cursor hovering over the reply button. In the dim light of his study, he couldn't know that this simple message would lead him down a path from which there might be no return. That the warmth he so desperately sought would turn into something far more sinister. Looking back, there were so many red flags, his daughter Madison would later tell investigators, her voice breaking. But Dad, he just wanted to believe that someone could love him again. That's what made him perfect for their trap. As Duke typed his reply, the clock on his study wall ticked past midnight. Outside, the Texas wind howled across the empty ranch, as if trying to warn him of the nightmare that was about to begin. What began as casual messages quickly blossomed into something more. Duke found himself checking his phone constantly, eager for Isabella's replies. She had a way with words that made him feel understood, appreciated, and most dangerously, young again. Their late-night conversations meandered from her boutique business to his oil ventures, from shared dreams to intimate confessions. Life in Monterrey can be lonely, Isabella wrote one night. Running a business at my age, people don't take you seriously. But you understand that, don't you, Duke? What it's like to build something from nothing. Her words struck a chord. Duke did understand, and with each message, the age gap between them seemed to matter less and less. Isabella's stories were carefully crafted masterpieces. She spoke of her struggles with conservative Mexican business culture, her dreams of expanding her boutique to Texas, and her desire to find a partner who could match her ambition. Each tale was sprinkled with just enough specific details to feel authentic, yet vague enough to avoid verification. She sent photos of her boutique, always from angles that obscured its location, and talked about clients whose names were never quite mentioned. Their first video call came 3 weeks into their relationship. The connection was poor, the lighting dim. Isabella blamed Monterrey's unreliable internet infrastructure. Despite the technical issues, Duke was captivated. She appeared exactly as her photos promised, though something about her eyes seemed different. When he mentioned this to his son Travis, the response was immediate and harsh. Dad, are you serious? A 24-year-old boutique owner who can barely manage a decent video call but claims to run a successful business? Wake up. Travis had stormed out of their weekly family dinner, leaving Duke defensive and angry. Madison tried a gentler approach. "Daddy, we're just worried. Remember what happened to Richard from church? He met someone online from Colombia, and they cleaned out his bank account." Duke dismissed her concerns with a wave of his hand. "Isabella's different," he insisted. "She doesn't need my money. She has her own business." But Isabella was skilled at her craft. Each time Duke's family raised concerns, she had already prepared him with a counter-narrative. "My parents were the same way," she confided during one of their late-night calls. "They never believed I could succeed on my own. Sometimes the people closest to us are the ones who doubt us the most." Duke nodded, finding comfort in their shared experiences of being misunderstood. The photos kept coming, Isabella at a cafe, at her boutique, at a local festival. Duke saved each one, not noticing how they never showed her interacting with friends or family, how the backgrounds were always generic enough to be anywhere in Latin America. When she sent a photo of herself holding a custom-made sign reading, "Missing my Texas cowboy," his heart melted, overriding the small voice in his head that wondered why the sign looked suspiciously like it had been digitally added. Their relationship deepened through calculated phases. Isabella began calling him mi amor, sharing intimate details about her day, even crying during one video call about a supposedly failed business deal. Duke felt needed, protective, and alive in a way he hadn't since his wife's passing. When his ranch hands noticed him smiling at his phone during work hours, they exchanged worried glances but kept their concerns to themselves. "I've never felt this way about anyone," Isabella told him 2 months into their online romance. "But sometimes I worry, maybe the age difference bothers you." Duke rushed to reassure her, not realizing he was playing directly into their script. Every doubt she raised was designed to make him prove his commitment more strong. The wall of his study, once covered in family photos, now featured printed screenshots of their conversations and Isabella's pictures. His daughter Madison visited less frequently, unable to bear watching her father fall deeper into what she was certain was a trap. But Duke was beyond reach, lost in a digital romance that seemed to offer everything he'd been missing. He couldn't see that each message, each call, each photo was another strand in a web being carefully woven around him. A web that would soon draw tight with devastating consequences. 3 months into their digital romance, Isabella's voice trembled during their nightly video call. "Duke, mi amor. I can't keep pretending that these calls are enough. I need to see you, to touch your face, to know this is real." The words sent Duke's heart racing. He had been thinking the same thing for weeks but hadn't dared to suggest it. "Come to Monterrey," she continued, her image flickering in the dim light of her supposed bedroom. "My boutique is hosting a charity fashion show next week. It's perfect timing." Duke didn't hesitate. "I'll be there," he promised, already mentally planning the trip. Isabella's smile widened, though it didn't quite reach her eyes. The next morning, Duke threw himself into preparations with the same determination that had built his oil empire. He booked a room at Monterrey's most expensive hotel, though Isabella insisted he cancel it. "Stay at my guest house," she urged. "It's more private, more romantic." When he mentioned the change to Madison during their morning coffee, her cup froze halfway to her lips. "A guest house? Dad, you've never even seen this place. What if it's not real?" But Duke was already at the mall, selecting gifts that he felt would impress a woman 3 decades his junior. A Cartier watch worth more than most people's monthly salary. Exclusive perfumes. Designer handbags. Each purchase felt like another brick in the foundation of their future together. Travis made one last attempt to intervene, showing up unannounced at the ranch. "I did some digging," he said, spreading printouts across Duke's kitchen table. "There's no registered boutique under Isabella Torres in Monterrey. The address she gave you? It doesn't exist." Duke's face hardened. "Son, I know you mean well, but I'm not some senile old man being taken for a ride. I've video called with her. I've seen her business." The night before his departure, Duke hosted what he hoped would be a celebratory family dinner. Instead, it felt more like a funeral. Madison barely touched her food, while Travis maintained a stony silence. Only his youngest, Sarah, made an attempt at normalcy, asking questions about Isabella's boutique that Duke answered with rehearsed enthusiasm. "Just promise us one thing," Madison finally said, her voice cracking. "Share your location with us. Keep your phone on. And if anything feels wrong, anything at all, you'll come straight home." Duke agreed, more to ease their concerns than out of any real worry. After all, he had survived the rough-and-tumble Texas oil business. How dangerous could a fashion boutique owner be? That night, as Duke packed his bags, he lingered over a photo of his late wife. "I think you'd like her, Marie," he whispered. "She has your spirit." The irony of those words would haunt him later. His suitcase was a testament to hope and vulnerability. Expensive gifts carefully wrapped, his best suits, daily medications, and printed maps of Monterrey marked with Isabella's supposed locations. In his wallet, he placed $5,000 in cash, just in case, though he had already sent Isabella money for what she called fashion show preparations. As dawn broke on departure day, Duke took one last look at his ranch. The morning sun painted the Texas sky in brilliant oranges and reds, nature's own warning signal that he was too blinded by love to see. His phone buzzed with a message from Isabella. "Safe travels, mi amor. Soon you'll be in my arms." He smiled, locked his door, and headed for his truck, unaware that every mile toward Monterrey was a step deeper into an elaborately laid trap. The Texas highway stretched endlessly before Duke's truck as he headed south toward Laredo. 6 hours of driving lay ahead, and each mile marker ticked by with the rhythm of his pounding heart. He had made this drive countless times for business, but never with such anticipation, never with such purpose. Isabella's latest selfie, supposedly taken in her boutique stockroom, lit up his phone screen at a rest stop. "Just finishing preparations for your arrival, mi amor." Dawn had barely broken when he left Austin, but by the time he reached San Antonio, the March sun beat down mercilessly. Duke's phone buzzed constantly, messages from his children alternating with Isabella's updates. Madison's text was terse, location sharing still on. Travis sent articles about travel warnings for Mexico. Sarah just wrote, "Love you, Dad. Be safe." He responded to them all with reassurances, but only lingered over Isabella's messages. As Laredo approached, the first seeds of unease began to take root. Isabella's messages changed subtly. Slight change of plans, mi amor. The fashion show venue had plumbing issues. We moved it to a private estate. Before Duke could press for details, another message arrived. "Don't worry about the hotel. My driver Miguel will meet you at the border crossing. He knows where to take you." The border crossing at Laredo was a jarring transition. Gone were the familiar Texas landscapes, replaced by the bustling chaos of Nuevo Laredo. Duke's truck inched forward in the crossing line, his grip tightening on the steering wheel. The customs officer raised an eyebrow at his story about visiting a girlfriend, but waved him through with a warning, "Be careful in Monterrey, senor. Not everything is as it seems." Just past the border, his phone chimed with another message from Isabella. "Miguel is in a silver Escalade. He's wearing a red cap. Trust him, mi amor." Duke pulled into a gas station, scanning for the vehicle. The silver Escalade appeared within minutes, driven by a man whose face seemed permanently set in an unnaturally wide smile. "Senor Blackwood?" Isabella sends her apologies. She's very busy with the show preparations. Following the Escalade through Monterrey's industrial outskirts, Duke's truck passed rows of abandoned warehouses and shuttered factories. This wasn't the vibrant city center Isabella had described, with its boutiques and cafes. "Are you sure this is the right way?" Duke called Miguel on the number Isabella had provided. "Sí, senor. Isabella's new venue is very exclusive. Very private." The sun was setting when they turned onto a dirt road, the city's lights receding behind them. Duke's phone signal began to weaken, the location-sharing app struggling to update. One final message from Isabella came through. "Almost there, mi amor. I can't wait to finally hold you." The message ended with a heart emoji, but something about its tone felt different, mechanical almost. Miguel's Escalade kicked up dust as it led them deeper into an industrial complex. Chain-link fences topped with razor wire lined the road. Duke's instincts, honed by decades in the cutthroat oil business, screamed at him to turn around. But the thought of Isabella waiting, of all the plans they'd made, pushed him forward. They finally stopped before a compound surrounded by high walls. The main gate, heavy and metal, bore fresh paint over what looked like years of rust. Miguel gestured for Duke to park his truck beside several other vehicles, all with U.S. license plates. Isabella is waiting inside, senor. Please, follow me. As Duke stepped out of his truck, the evening air thick with the smell of diesel and something else, something chemical and sharp, he noticed movement in the shadows near the compound's corners. Men trying too hard to look casual, hands concealed beneath jackets despite the warm evening. Miguel's smile never wavered as he led Duke toward the gate, but now it seemed more like a predator's grin. The heavy metal gate closed behind them with a sound like a prison door slamming shut. In that moment, standing in the gathering darkness of a Mexican industrial complex far from the glamorous boutique he'd imagined, Duke finally realized what his family had seen all along. But by then, it was already too late. The compound's interior was a stark contrast to the luxurious fashion venue Isabella had described. Bare concrete walls rose on either side as Miguel led Duke through a dimly lit corridor. The clicking of Duke's boots echoed ominously, each step carrying him deeper into what he now realized was clearly not a boutique or private estate. Just through here, senor, Miguel gestured toward a metal door. Isabella is finishing a call. The room beyond was spartanly furnished, a few plastic chairs, a scratched table, and fluorescent lights that flickered erratically. Two men sat in the corners, their muscled frames failing to project the casual air they attempted. Please, sit, one of them said, his accent distinctly not Mexican. Isabella's cousins. We are. The grammatical error sent a chill down Duke's spine. These men weren't anyone's cousins, and he was certain now that Isabella didn't exist. Back in Austin, Madison stared at her phone. Her father's location marker hadn't moved for 30 minutes, frozen at some industrial complex outside Monterrey. Her texts went unanswered. Something's wrong, she told Travis over the phone. His signal's stuck in the middle of nowhere. The truth revealed itself with brutal efficiency. As Duke reached for his phone, the larger of the two men moved with surprising speed. A hand clamped down on Duke's wrist while another figure emerged from behind, pressing something cold and metallic against his neck. Senor Blackwood, a woman's voice purred. Welcome to my boutique. She stepped into view, tall, elegant, but at least 40 years old. Nothing like Isabella's photos. I must say, you're more impressive in person than on video call. Her smile was razor-sharp, her eyes cold and calculating. Where's Isabella? Duke demanded, though he already knew the answer. The woman laughed, a sound like breaking glass. Poor Duke. Isabella was a dream we sold you. And you bought it so easily. The lonely rich rancher, so desperate for young love. Travis paced his living room, phone records spread across his coffee table. Dad's last call was 6 hours ago, just past the border, he told Madison. But look at these texts from Isabella. The typing pattern changed completely in the last hour. Duke's world spiraled into nightmare. They took everything, his phone, wallet, watch, even his belt and boots. The woman, who called herself Carmen, scrolled through his phone with practiced efficiency. Such a loving family you have, she mocked. So worried about you. Should we let them know where you are? My family will call the police, Duke warned, trying to keep his voice steady. Carmen's laugh turned cruel. The police? In this part of Monterrey? They know better than to interfere. Now, let's discuss your ranch, your oil investments, and how much your children would pay to see you alive again. Sarah was the first to reach the FBI office in Austin. Our father, she explained, fighting back tears, he went to Mexico to meet someone. We think it's a trap. The agent's face grew serious as she showed him the messages, the suspicious location, the sudden changes in communication patterns. Hours crawled by in Duke's concrete prison. His captors were professionals, methodical in their cruelty. They photographed him, bound and blooded, for proof-of-life pictures. Carmen dictated ransom messages to his family, enjoying how each word made him flinch. $5 million, she announced. That's the price for your father's life. The message went out to Madison's phone, along with images that would haunt her forever. The FBI agents moved quickly, recognizing the hallmarks of a sophisticated cartel operation. Duke thought of his children's warnings, of all the red flags he'd ignored. Each punch, each threat, each moment of terror was the price of his willful blindness. In his pocket, they'd missed something. A small tracking device Sarah had slipped into his wallet at their last dinner. Just in case, she'd whispered. It was his only hope now. The FBI's anti-kidnapping unit worked through the night. This group is known to us, the lead agent told the Blackwood children. They've done this before, targeting wealthy Americans through dating sites. Maps of Monterrey's industrial sector covered the walls, Duke's last known location marked in red. As darkness fell over the compound, Duke listened to his captors plan his fate in rapid-fire Spanish, catching enough words to understand his situation's gravity. Carmen's operation was larger than he'd imagined. Multiple victims, multiple scams, all orchestrated with theatrical precision. 400 miles away, his children huddled around the FBI command center, watching satellite imagery of the compound. The rescue operation was being planned, but time was running out. Every hour increased the risk that Duke would become another statistic, another cautionary tale about the dangers of online romance. The Austin FBI field office hummed with activity as Special Agent Diana Reyes spread dozens of files across the conference table. Duke Blackwood wasn't their first case. He was just the latest victim in a pattern they'd been tracking for months. 6 other American men had vanished in Monterrey under similar circumstances, all lured by mysterious young women from dating sites. The profile's always the same, Reyes explained to the Blackwood siblings. Successful men over 50, usually widowed or divorced. The scammers study their victims for months, crafting the perfect bait. She pulled up Isabella's profile, now a ghost in the digital world. They build elaborate backstories, fake businesses, entire fictional lives. Madison's hands trembled as she unlocked her father's laptop. The FBI cyber team worked swiftly, unraveling months of communications. Isabella's messages revealed careful manipulation, each response calculated, each photo strategically shared. The boutique photos Duke had been sent were traced to various shops across Latin America, digitally altered to remove identifying details. Look at this. Travis pointed to a message thread. Every time Dad mentioned visiting, she'd create some emergency. A fashion show cancelled, a family crisis, a business problem. They were buying time, building trust until he was completely hooked. The pattern was clinical, precise, a well-oiled machine designed to separate vulnerable men from their wealth. The breakthrough came from an unexpected source. Sarah's tracking device, dismissed by the kidnappers as a simple wallet ornament, was still transmitting. Agent Reyes coordinated with Mexican authorities, but the response was troubling. Local police seemed reluctant to investigate certain areas of Monterrey's industrial sector. We've identified the woman behind Isabella, Carmen Valdez, Reyes revealed, pinning a surveillance photo to the board. She's been linked to at least 12 other scams across Mexico. But she's protected, connected to the Nuevo Leon cartel through her brother. The crime scene photos from previous cases made Madison rush from the room, overwhelmed by images of what her father might be enduring. As the investigation deepened, a darker pattern emerged. The cartel wasn't just running romance scams. They were using them to identify wealthy targets for kidnapping and extortion. Bank records showed similar ransom amounts, always demanded in cryptocurrency, always following the same theatrical script of love turned to nightmare. The compound where they're holding your father, Agent Reyes pointed to satellite imagery. It's been on our radar. Previous victims reported identical details. The silver Escalade, the man in the red cap, the industrial location. But by the time authorities moved in, it was always empty. Travis studied the compound's layout obsessively. The cartel moves their victims through a network of these buildings, he noted, his oil industry experience helping him understand the industrial landscape. They're using abandoned manufacturing sites, places with multiple escape routes. A joint task force took shape, FBI, DEA, Mexican Federal Police, and Special Operations units. They faced a delicate balance, move too slowly, and Duke could become another statistic. move too quickly, and the cartel might eliminate their witness. Every hour brought new evidence of the operation's sophistication. These aren't just opportunistic criminals, Reyes explained. They're running a business. Each victim is researched, each scenario scripted. The woman you see in video calls isn't even Carmen. They use younger girls for calls, always in dim lighting, always with poor connections to hide the deception. Sarah discovered older scam attempts in Duke's emails. Other Isabellas who had tried and failed to hook him over the years. The cartel cast wide nets, waiting patiently for vulnerable moments. Duke's grief over his wife's death had made him a perfect target. The task force worked around the clock, coordinating with Mexican authorities they could trust. Carmen's operation had grown too bold, too greedy. Previous victims had paid quietly, broken by shame and fear. But the Blackwood family's persistence, combined with Sarah's tracking device, gave them something they'd never had before, a real-time location and a chance to catch the scammers in the act. As Agent Reyes finalized the rescue plan, a message arrived from one of their Mexican contacts. Carmen was planning to move Duke within 24 hours. The window for action was closing fast. Night settled over Monterrey's industrial sector like a heavy blanket. Inside the compound, Duke drifted in and out of consciousness, his face swollen from Carmen's men's latest persuasion attempt. They'd grown increasingly agitated as hours passed without his family meeting their demands. Through the haze of pain, he heard urgent voices and hurried footsteps. "Move him tonight," Carmen ordered. "The Federals are asking too many questions." Her words sent a chill through Duke's battered body. Movement meant either freedom or a shallow grave, and he'd heard enough to know which was more likely. The task force mobilized under cover of darkness. Mexican special forces took point, with FBI tactical teams providing support. Sarah's tracking device had given them something precious: certainty. They knew exactly which building held their target, eliminating the need to search the sprawling complex. Carmen was in the middle of another threatening call to Madison when the first explosions rocked the compound. Flashbangs burst through windows as assault teams breached from multiple entry points. The kidnappers' response was immediate and violent. Gunfire erupted, echoing off concrete walls. Duke heard the chaos erupting above. In his windowless cell, every explosion felt like salvation getting closer. Then his door burst open. Carmen, wild-eyed, pistol in hand. "You're still worth something," she snarled, grabbing his arm. But as she dragged him toward a hidden exit, years of ranch work and oil field experience paid off. Duke threw his weight backward, sending them both crashing into the wall. The rescue teams found them there, Carmen unconscious from the impact, Duke barely aware of the armed men calling his name. "FBI! Mr. Blackwood! You're safe now." The words seemed to come from far away as darkness finally claimed him. Madison's phone rang at 3:47 a.m. "We have him," Agent Reyes said simply. "He's alive." The Blackwood siblings collapsed into each other's arms, tears flowing freely. Their father was coming home. Duke spent 2 weeks in a Monterrey hospital before being stable enough to transport back to Texas. His injuries would heal, but the psychological wounds ran deeper. The man who returned to the ranch was different, warier, quieter, haunted by memories of those 4 days in hell. Carmen's organization crumbled quickly. The raid yielded evidence that led to dozens of arrests across Mexico and the United States. Hard drives revealed hundreds of potential victims, men who'd been groomed but not yet targeted. The investigation uncovered a network of professional scammers, hackers, and cartel enforcers, all working together to exploit human loneliness. Duke testified against them from Austin, his family surrounding him as he recounted his ordeal via video link. Carmen Valdez and her core team received lengthy sentences in Mexican federal prison. The case became a watershed moment, leading to increased cooperation between U.S. and Mexican authorities on romance scam investigations. 1 year later, Duke stood before a room full of law enforcement officials and victims' advocates. His voice was strong as he shared his story, no longer burdened by shame. "Loneliness makes us vulnerable," he told them. "But seeking love shouldn't be a death sentence." The dating sites implemented new safety measures. though everyone knew determined scammers would find new ways to prey on the vulnerable. Back at the ranch, Duke found healing in routine and family. His children visited more often, and the weekly family dinners resumed. The wall of his study, once covered with Isabella's photos, now held pictures of his grandchildren. He'd lost his fortune but gained something more valuable: a second chance at life and a deeper appreciation for the love that had been there all along. Sarah kept the tracking device she'd slipped into his wallet, now framed in her living room. A reminder that sometimes the smallest acts of love and foresight can mean the difference between life and death. The Texas sun still rose every morning over Duke's ranch, but he no longer watched it alone. His story became a warning to others, a testament to both human vulnerability and resilience. In the end, Duke Blackwood found what he'd been searching for all along, not in the false promises of a digital romance, but in the unwavering love of the family he already had.